morning. It is Saturday, which means it's time to talk about one of the worst shows on television, Star Trek Picard. Welcome, everyone, to Salty Saturdays. We're back. Took last week off because I was traveling for family reasons and Vader was sick, had no voice. And also, Salty Trekker had no internet, so it was just an all-around clusterfuck of a situation. So we weren't
Matthew, language.
I know we weren't able to do last week's stream, but this week we're going to make up for it by talking about the previous episode and the current episode of Star Trek Picard, episodes 7 and 8, which are probably two of the worst episodes of the season, at least in my opinion. I know
isn't this sad?
Agree with me
that you say that, like how you introed the show and what you just said. Isn't this just depressing? Saying that
it's extremely depressing. But before we get going, we just want to let everyone know that our other panelist, Brian from the Popcast, he's going to be a little bit late, so he'll pop in eventually. But it's going to be the four of us to start with. Matt Bader 74, how you feeling this morning? And are you ready to talk some Star Trek?
I'm feeling a little bit better, but then I remembered that we had to talk about this pile of shit show today, and I started feeling a little bit. That's true. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I remembered that we had to talk about this show, and I went back to bed, but I decided I better show up. But you know what's on my mind more than anything, more than this show, and I really need the people in the chat to pay attention to this. This channel has 8 more spots left before we hit 5,000 subs.
Nice.
Oh, snap.
I need you guys to hit that sub button if you haven't hit the sub button yet, and tell your friends to come check it out too, because we work really hard here, and we deserve your subs. I think we do, and
do it now.
So check it out, guys. Check out our other content and get us there. Help us get there. We appreciate it.
And also with us, as always, is Danny the Dork Knight. Hey, Danny, how you doing, buddy?
Doing fantastic, in spite of the fact.
Picard?
Yes, but it's a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? So
yes. And Brian has finally joined us. Brian, good morning.
What's happening?
Good morning. Boys? Good morning.
So Brian, I was on your stream yesterday. I just barely scratched the surface of what I wanted to talk about with these 2 episodes. But are you ready to talk some Picard this morning?
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I have a graph that I want to show you guys.
Brian's ready to talk about Brie Larson.
No, he's not. I do want to say, Brian. Hey,
don't
Brian,
even get me started on that.
You weren't in the green room, so we didn't get to talk about this. Man, were we wrong with our theory with the time?
Not yet.
Not yet. We're going to get to that.
Okay.
But last but not least, certainly, is the Salty Trekker himself, Michael. How's your internet doing, buddy? Glad to have you back.
Now that that's back, great. Although, so my opinion of AT&T has dropped like the proverbial stone, because took them over a week to get out here to fix a downed line when I was telling them that, look, everything I do is through the internet. And then after the tech left, the old fiber line is still literally hanging off the side of my house. He just left it there. And it's like, okay, so great. I'm a disabled guy. What am I supposed to do? Climb my butt up on the side of the house and cut it down?
Well, yeah.
And then what do? I get on here with all you guys being all negative and everything. So I decide, what am I going to do? No, I'm going to relax.
I try to sprinkle
positivity.
So
I have my Borg Green scented candle.
Oh man!
And see,
aromatic.
I have my
Woosah.
I got something else green that calms my nerves, but I don't.
So before we get into this, I just want to do some shout outs from the chat. Andre Anderson, always good to see you, buddy. Ro Gaza from the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast, good to see you in the chat, buddy. Good morning. Orwell's son, good to see you. Marks 47, Digital Jazz XYZ. John DeMarco, Quantum Cat 76, good to see you, Quantum. Lunar Girl, as always, wonderful to see you. Anthony Mark, very nice to see you, sir. Jason Price, and Anima Confusa, our current Salty Nerd Trivia Champion. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. If you haven't already, please hit that thumbs up button. Give this video a like. It really helps us with the YouTube algorithm. And now let's just get into it. So I'm going to do the format a little bit differently than what we normally do. I usually like to get everyone's thoughts about stuff and have them kind of like dictate the conversation. But I have so much to say about these 2 episodes. I just need to get through all my notes. I need to get through all my bullet points. I'm going to be asking you guys in particular what you think about some of these points I'm going to be bringing up. And we're going to try to get through all this in 2 hours. So the first thing I want to point out is that I did a little bit of research, and there are 2 writers who have been responsible for writing this show from episode 3 onward. Now, if you remember, we thought episodes 1 and 2 were pretty decent, right?
We had hope. We had hope.
But there were 2 writers who basically took over after episode 2, and they have been alternating in writing the episodes that we've been getting.
Right.
The first writer, they're both women, by the way, and they both come from backgrounds where like they have never written any sci-fi before. It was all like either like one of them wrote for the MacGyver reboot. The other one wrote for like some like romantic comedies and stuff like that. So they are Jane Maggs and Cindy Apple. And these are the 2 writers who have been kind of rotating the writing duties for this show since episode 3 onward. And I think that it's quite apparent that these 2 ladies are not the right pick for Star Trek Picard. Now, I don't know what influence the staff writers and the story editors and the showrunner have on their final scripts, but it's very obvious that they're the ones who are delivering the finished story to us. And I think it's very interesting that they seem like almost like diversity hires in terms of like, you know, like where they were plucked from by Secret Hideout in order to be given this responsibility. And they're just not very good. I think we can all agree that from episode 3 on, the show has just been steadily getting worse and worse. And it's because these 2 women are writing the show.
I really hate
to do with the fact that they're women.
Right.
It just has to do with the fact that they're bad writers.
When you said that they were women, I wasn't like because they were women, I was like, great. Now it's going to seem like 5 guys are piling on 2 chicks, and it has nothing to do.
See, I've seen that movie.
Yeah, me too.
Oh God.
5 guys, 2 chicks.
Anyway, you know what
I think that's the upcoming Fast and Furious film.
you just really want to get that in there, don't you, Mike?
I could talk about that for hours, by the way.
That'll be our Sunday stream. Yeah, all right. So one of the things I want to talk about. So first of all, the Popcast guys have been doing an excellent job covering this series. And one of the things that Shane said on one of their reviews is that it's obvious that this season is all about mental health.
Yes.
And I think that it's ironic that it's destroying our mental health having to watch this show. But when it comes to the theme of the season, it's about how we deal with trauma, mental health, and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, if they want to do a very special episode of Picard that deals with, mental health, that's fine. But making it the core theme of the entire season just seems really stupid to me. So what do you guys think of this theme of Star Trek Picard being about mental health? Danny, I know that you have, dealt with mental health issues in the past. What do you think about this?
So normally, especially because the Nerds Never Say Die and in the mental health work that I do and, things that I've been through, normally I like on paper, this sounds like a good idea, but in execution, is like, I loved your line. That was perfect. It's so bad for our mental health. It's just not good. And Picard is Picard's a synthetic. So that to me is also, none of it makes sense. It just seems like they're trying to, like everything they seem to do now with new Star Trek, they're just trying to wedge in their issues, just like force them in. And it just makes for really bad storytelling. And anyway, that's all
So
I'll say.
one of the primary plot points of episode 7 was that Picard's mother was a manic depressive, right? And in that same episode, we have a neural oscillator, which is teleported to the clinic that the doctor uses on Picard to instantly solve his mental brainwave problems. So my question, and I want to hear from Salty Trekker and Brian about this, is that in a century where medical science is far more advanced than our current timeline, why couldn't they use something similar to the neural oscillator to regulate Star Trek Picard or Picard's mother's brain chemistry so that she wouldn't have these manic depressive episodes. Because I remember in Star Trek 4, when McCoy was walking around and he was like, what is this, the Dark Ages?
Right.
You know, like you would think that they would have found a way to solve the brain chemistry issue.
Well, they had established that as far back as the original series. I mean, the neural neutralizer in Dagger of the Mind was an early attempt at that, and they had already talked about the fact that shifting memory patterns was basic psychotherapy in the 23rd century. And so the fact that, you know, the problem, and this is a problem with Trek. This is not a problem unique to Picard. This is a problem with Trek over the last 60 years, is that they solve a problem, but then they want to address that problem again. And so they just have to kind of forget that they solved that problem. And so mental health issues, and in fact, just the simple fact that how many times have we heard out of the mouth of one character or another that thanks to the miracles of the Federation, war, famine, and disease have been eradicated, and then we come up with war, famine, and disease in various episodes. Mm-hmm. So it's just, unfortunately, an inconsistency within Trek.
I mean,
but what I found interesting is that they literally had the cure for bipolar disorder in this episode with the neural oscillator. But then the crux of the episode is about how Picard remembers that his mother had bipolar disorder. Right. I was just like, wow. Vader, what were you going to say?
I think it's interesting that they supposedly have cured all these mental health issues and brain chemistry issues and stuff, but yet all these ships have ship's counselors attached to them.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, yeah. Why is Troy even there?
Why do we need counselors? And
because she's easy on the eyes.
So, you know, it's just I feel like it's one of those
can
things
you solve
that goes
all
way
mental
back.
problems with chemicals, though? I don't know if you can.
Something off somewhere with a lot of that stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I don't mind the ships having ship counselors or anything like that. But before we get going, Danny,
super chat
from RM. I'm not even going to try to roll.
It's
yes.
Okay.
$1.99 super chat. Hi, gents. Traveling today. We'll catch the replay. Well, that's what we are here for. Feel free to catch the replay anytime you want.
It's just the sound that a car makes in Fast and the Furious. That's what that is.
RM? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I got to address the elephant in the room here. And this is something that bothered me across these last two episodes. So we know that Picard's a synthetic, right? But he's like an organic synthetic, which means that like he's vulnerable like a human. He acts his age. His body responds to, you know, as a 80-year-old human, even though he's synthetic. And apparently he can like reflect electro pulses from a defibrillator back into it. But he was hit by a car, right? And I went back to episode 6 and rewatched that scene where Soon basically runs into him with the car. And he runs into him and basically hits him with such force that he flings him a couple feet away from the car, and he hits the ground. He's bleeding from the mouth. Now, normally an 80-year-old, if he didn't get killed from that type of impact, he would have definitely broken some bones, gotten a concussion. Just a sec, Michael. Gotten a concussion, all that stuff. So they get him to a clinic. We never see how he's gotten to the clinic. I assume that he was teleported there, but it's hard to say. But by the time they get Picard out of his mind prison in episode 7, he's up, he's walking around, he doesn't have anything wrong with him, no broken bones, nothing. But he's got a bruise on his hand from the IV that the FBI agent points out in episode 8. So he's able to get bruised from an IV, but after getting hit by a car, he's perfectly fine. So I want to ask you guys about this inconsistency. Like, what are the writers thinking about this? Michael, you said you want...
Yes, I actually have an answer to that.
All right.
It is not an inconsistency. It is, in fact, a consistency, because we are talking about the same Picard that took a firebomb to the face in season 1
Picard.
And did the same. No, I'm saying that human Picard took a firebomb to the face, and they took him home and let him rest on the couch, and then he was up and around and fine with no broken bones. And so, yeah, what's the big deal? That's just what 80-year-olds do in the 25th century, apparently. So, yeah, I have no problem with it, because if 80-year-old Picard can do that in season 1 as an organic, synthetic organic Picard can do it in season 2. I mean, if that's just the way they roll, apparently.
He's very spry.
But his body bruises from an IV.
Yeah.
Well,
so
yeah, you know, they punctured his skin.
What was the? How did you phrase
Well,
the
he
original
was
question?
bleeding from the mouth, which means
Yeah.
he hit his head. Anyway, Brian, I wanted to hear your take on this.
I mean, the actor's like 90 years old, man.
No, he's only 80. 90 is
Whatever
Shatner.
he is, he's a million years old. It doesn't matter. I mean, you get to a certain point where age is just like, it literally is just
He's
a number.
older than I'll ever live to be. So
Yeah,
I mean,
same here.
if they came out in the show and had just said Picard's synthetic body is more resilient than the regular human body, which is how he was able to survive being hit without any serious injury, I'd be like, okay, fine. But they don't do that. They said that he ages just like a normal human, that his body responds just like a normal human, and he bruises just like a normal human when you get a fucking IV in the hand. But when he gets hit by a car, no serious injury. Yeah, he fell into a coma. But like normally, like you'd have like broken legs, broken arms, broken pelvis, concussion, something.
Yeah,
that comment you posted summed it up about right.
Yeah, I wish I can go back in time and just tell the writers in season 1, like, he doesn't just, don't give him a disease. Don't give him a disease that's incurable, and we can just skip all this. We can just skip all of this. He doesn't have to be synthetic. He doesn't have to have any of those issues. They're doing it this season too. They're constantly like introducing new problems that like aren't necessary. They don't add to the story. They just make it more muddy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. I'm on a
All right. So, guys, I got to ask. Episode 7, we're in Picard's mind prison while he's in a coma. And we're seeing him talk to his father, even though he doesn't seem to recognize it's his father for some reason.
Because he has hair.
He's having a therapy session with his dad while a younger version of himself is running around with Not Laris in some type of dungeon with monsters in it. Where's Picard's brother? Didn't he have like a brother?
Oh, so I asked somebody this. I think it was Brian that said this, or Michael, but I asked that same question, and they said that his brother was one of the monsters.
I think that's headcanon, though. I don't think
They
that.
never-
They don't say flat out anything about his brother in that episode.
Okay, they don't.
His brother's not important to the story, so
Well, that and the dad, they showed the dad in Next Gen, and he was old and withered and bald, and like
Is Robert older or younger than Jean-Luc?
he's older.
Okay.
He's his older brother. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you guys this because, this was a big issue for me in episode 7. So Picard is basically talking with his dad, and he comes to realize that his dad was not the bad dude that he thought he was, or like whatever, because his mom had mental health issues.
Right.
But trying to see like how I can word this. Lost my train of thought. So why didn't Picard recognize his dad to begin with?
Well, what is it you said the other day, Michael? Because it was Bashir. It was actually Bashir.
I think because keep in mind that Picard was in a semi-delusional state throughout that entire episode.
I don't know. He seemed pretty cognizant when he was talking to the dad.
I think that he was having a flashback to an actual psych profile that he had.
Again, canon.
Well, not necessarily. If you take a look at the uniform that his dad is wearing, that's a Deep Space Nine era uniform that takes place right after Generations. Because if you remember the movie Generations, they had like 3 different uniforms because they were trying to reconcile the different series in that movie. Or sorry,
real quick, I finally remembered what I was going to ask you guys. So everything that's taken place in Picard's mind, it's not like in season 1. We had Data, whose positronic, whatever particles were like in the ether, and so when he talked to Data, he was actually talking to Data.
But they were in Picard's psyche.
Now, in Picard, in this season, when he's talking to his dad, that character doesn't actually exist. That's like Picard's memory of his dad. So it's like, how can you have any kind of meaningful revelation from a memory that you're basically that you're providing to yourself, right? Can one of you guys explain that to me?
How are we trying to make sense of this shitty writing? I don't know.
Hold up. Yes, yeah, the writing's been rough, but actually, I think that, yeah, he's creating this this apparition. But anything you create in your mind, anything that you imagine, you can heal and you can feel better about problems. I understand that, but if it's real to him, I mean, Danny, you understand this. If it's real to you, in therapy they have sessions where they have a person standing in for someone else, or they have you talk to yourself as the person that you're having frustrations with. It is a form of therapy for sure.
But I want to get to, so basically, what caused Picard to go into a mind prison coma? Because it wasn't just a coma. They pointed that out right after he got hit, because they said, brainwave activity would be much lower in an actual coma. So what the fuck happened to put Picard into a deep subconscious, introspective, holodeck style state? Like, how did he enter that?
The last time we met, when I said they should have had the car accident end with him on his back going, error, error, error. That's why.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to your question, Matt. I mean, it's a really weird way of telling the story, right? It's just it felt like you just said, like a holodeck episode, and I think they were just trying to tell us in a very poor way whatever the hell it was that they were trying to tell us. I don't know any other way to say it. It's very strange.
Upon rewatching the episode, the only justification I could find is that when the doctor used the defibrillator on Picard when he was like going through arrest, somehow the shock from that put him into that coma.
Well, wasn't he already in it though? I mean, he was already.
Well, he was unconscious.
He was knocked out. He was unconscious. He was dying. But then, like after that, he went into the coma. But they never flat out came out and said that's why he was in the coma. So that's all headcanon, right? Like that's the only thing I can use to justify it. But they didn't explain that in the show itself.
You're right, but that does sort of make sense though, because
it does. But it only makes sense if they actually say this is why he's in the coma, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think the coma was simply an excuse for that episode. And that's been kind of the overarching problem with Picard as a series. So far, they've had about 3 hours of really solid entertainment stretched out for 8 hours.
Yeah.
She wasn't in episode 7 at all. And I don't know, episode 7 to me felt like you could have like skipped it and you wouldn't miss anything.
Well, that's the big issue I've had with the writers from episode 3 onward, is that if you look at episodes 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, they set up these plot lines that are resolved within the course of like one episode, maybe the beginning of the next episode. You had the immigration storyline with Rios that got wrapped up. You had basically the Ocean's 11 party episode that got wrapped up. You had the mine prison sequence that got wrapped up, and then you had the FBI arresting Picard thing that got wrapped up, all within the course of an episode. And it feels like every time they introduce one of these storylines, you feel like, how did this actually progress the core story of the season? And the answer is always, it didn't. It was a side quest that distracted from the actual storyline of the season. Right. And they keep doing it every single episode.
If we got 27 episodes or whatever, like they used to do back in the day, that'd be fine. But when we're getting 10, don't do this, to us. I don't know. I just, like so much is infuriating me. Like when we talk about not time agent, I'll probably have a brain aneurysm because like that.
All right,
so, I think it comes down to people that don't understand serialized television writing serialized television.
Yeah,
it's I also real quick. I also feel kind of like every scene they do with Patrick Stewart has him sitting on a chair or laying down on something, and so it's just like okay, he's old and frail and
It's
shaky,
killing me.
so let's just like have Patrick come in and sit down or lay down and do his lines, and they write the story about him not being able to like be very mobile.
They should have.
That's kind of where I'm at with this.
Yeah, they should have taken the opportunity to replace the actor with the synthetic stuff in season 1. They really should have, because
I'll tell you what it comes off as. It comes off as the fact that they have this ensemble cast and they don't know what to do with 90% of them.
Yeah, that's very true.
And so they're trying to figure out, okay, how can we keep these characters occupied while Picard does his thing? And it's constantly stupid.
it's so heartbreaking to see like Patrick Stewart like this. Like I don't understand. Like Shatner is like 11 years older than him and is more vibrant and alive.
Space. Yeah.
You know,
flying to space and stuff. Yeah.
You know, and you look at Patrick Stewart, and I swear it looks like his face is melting on the screen right in front of me.
Yeah,
Bro,
well, you know,
I don't want to be that guy, but one is a vegetarian and one is an avid meat eater.
Which is which?
The meat eater is Captain Kirk. He's
Awesome.
the guy.
He has a horse farm, you know. What do you think he does with the old horses?
Yeah, the guy eats a porterhouse, eats a 16-ounce porterhouse every week.
So the secret to longevity
Shatner's the man.
is protein.
Yes.
I mean,
protein.
Maybe it's just like a well-rounded diet. Maybe humans weren't meant to live without protein.
That's it.
All right, guys. So what we're going to talk about next, I've got so many notes here. I'm going to try to group them up into categories so that we can get through them quicker. But we're going to talk about Revan, Raffi 7. And so like this storyline is probably the most grating of everything
We don't have any.
in Picard. So I want to talk about the lack of chemistry between the lesbian couple, Raffi and Seven. And there's a scene in episode 7 where basically Raffi and Seven teleport back to La Sierra or La Sierra or whatever.
La Serena.
La Serena.
Thank you, sir. And they're talking about Girardi and Rios, and Raffi's just like, ugh, I can't believe that they're, a thing again, or like whatever. And then she starts talking about how her and Seven are the quote unquote main event.
Yeah.
And they're the relationship everyone cares about, and how they're the main characters in this story. And Brian, you and Shane had a great point in your review of episode 7 where you basically said, look, Jerry Ryan is not a lesbian. She has no chemistry at all with with Raffi. The whole relationship feels insincere. It doesn't feel genuine. It feels like thrust together for the sake of the story. And I think that this scene of the main event is a perfect example of that, where Jerry Ryan just looks irritated to be there. What do you guys think of the chemistry or lack of between Raffi and Seven, and why does the show keep pushing this?
Can I start with this real quick? I used to think that Jerry Ryan was a really good actress, and it's still possible that she is, but I think that it's clear that once you take her out of her comfort zone, and she's clearly not comfortable with this chemistry, it just falls apart, because her acting as lesbian Seven is night and day when she's just playing Seven. It's like a different person altogether. It's crazy.
Yeah. Let me piggyback on that just a second, because I know we're not to episode 8 yet, but if you look at all the scenes with Raffi and Seven trying to be a couple, Jerry Ryan feels stiff and awkward and just doesn't feel like she wants to be in the room. When the two of them, after their encounter with Girardi, and Seven is trying to figure out the battery thing and all that, all of a sudden Jerry Ryan was back. For those couple of minutes when she was talking about ions and batteries and heavy metals, it was like, hey, it's Seven.
Yeah, and there he is, Seven's back, and then right back to Raffi going, emotionally manipulative, and she was right back to being stiff, confused.
Yeah, I mean, I actually really agree with that observation, Michael, because it harkened back to I think the name of the episode's Raven from Voyager. where they tell the
Where
story.
they show her as a kid.
Yeah, where they show her as a kid, and she talks about like, because in that scene she's like, I was 6, I can still taste it or whatever. And that was the best acting she's done this season, in my opinion. That particular scene, but there is no. And what did we get? Like they held hands in the final episode of season 1, and then
no setup for that at all.
Yeah, now they're the main event.
It was just self-inserted.
Zero chemistry.
Listen, that whole scene, that main event scene where they come onto the Lost Arena, that annoyed the hell out of me. I do not need fourth wall breaking scenes in Star Trek. It annoys the living hell out of me. And I know it wasn't completely fourth wall breaking, but they were talking to us. They were talking to the audience there. And it was very fourth wall breaking. They might as well have had Ryan Reynolds there playing Deadpool, talking directly to us that was watching the show. And that's how I felt.
Or Zach from Saved by the Bell. Time out.
Exactly. Time out. It was, no, I don't need that in Star Trek. It's not how the show is supposed to work.
By the way, that would have been awesome if Zach showed up and said time out.
Yeah, it would have. But, it's just another example to me of the people that are running this show not being familiar with or knowing their audience or the property. It's really infuriating to me. So that's really all I got to say about it.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, like it felt like they just made 7 gay for intersectional points.
To check
like,
them out.
that's of course that's what they did.
It had nothing to do with her actual character or the story or anything like that. It was like Netflix. The best I can do is gay. So like here's your gay character.
And honestly, notice we haven't actually seen any real affection from them because I don't know. You guys might not know this, but Jerry Ryan, at least she used to be a diehard Republican.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt she feels comfortable being like intimate with the same sex when she's not a lesbian.
Wasn't she married to like a politician at some point?
She was married to a Republican politician. Yeah.
Yeah. So right before the main event scene, Seven and Raffi are at the clinic with Rios, and they say that they're going to use La Serena's sensors to track Girardi's comm badge. And that's how they were going to find Girardi, because at this point, they don't know that she's Borg Queen Girardi. And they just think that she disappeared. So my question to you guys is, number one, where was Girardi hiding her comm badge in that dress? And secondly, how did she get the comm badge through sneaking in through security at the party? And why can't they just teleport Girardi based off of her comm badge?
I got a giggity.
Right. I mean, I never thought I'd be attracted to her, but she looked hot in that dress. And as someone who has unfortunately, spent a little bit of time in the pokey, I know exactly where she hid that thing.
In the cooch? Is that where it was?
Yeah.
That's where we're going with this conversation.
Danny's hardcore now.
Yeah. That's right, man.
Yeah,
getting my teardrop tattoo.
Oh, Jesus.
But yeah, like where was she hiding her comm badge, especially when she was going through security?
Did they all have their comm badges with them at the party?
Well, where else could she have gotten it? Because she hasn't been back anywhere since the party, right? She left the party as the Borg Queen.
I thought they had like little things in their ears for comms at the party.
No, like they're talking about the actual like comm badge.
Right. I don't think they established that they had their badges with them at the party.
Well, then how can they be tracking her based off of her comm badge?
I mean, that's kind of
because that's what they said. Raffi and Seven were going back to the ship to track Girardi's comm badge to try to find her.
Well, maybe they're trying to track the thing in her ear.
Well, that's not a badge.
Because that's the little thing. But the little thing.
They specifically said comm
the little
badge.
thing from the center of the badge that, maybe that's what they were talking about.
I doubt it. I think that it was just the comm badge.
I don't really think they care. I think they just needed a plot contrivance.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it's like
whatever her comm device was,
How hard is it? I say this every week, to just hire one of like a nerd, like one of us, as a consultant to make sure they don't screw tiny little shit up like this that create huge plot holes.
All right. Yeah. Secondly, one of the issues that I really had to hammer on was the fact that as soon as Seven and Raffi discovered that Girardi was possessed by the Borg Queen, why didn't they contact Rios and let him know what was up? Instead, they just go off and start searching for the Borg Queen, and then they tell him after Rios goes back to the ship.
That you read that, Matt? Kadish, you read that from Anima? That's come on. That's perfect. There's
All
no
right,
answer.
so-
You can't make sense of nonsense. You know.
All right, so answer me this, right? So Raffi and Seven teleport back to Los Angeles, and they go to the bar that, Borg Queen Girardi broke the window of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that they know that she's there is because they used the La Serena to hack into the CCTV system of Los Angeles and live stream it to their tricorder and watch her go into the bar and break that window. And then after they see her do that, Seven says, how do we track something we don't understand? While they're literally watching the CCTV footage on their tricorder.
Mm-hmm.
So why can't they just search the CCTV footage and track Girardi's movements when she leaves the bar to find out where the fuck she went?
Because it's not London.
I'm going to quote Anima.
They literally,
again.
the FBI used the CCTV footage to find Picard teleporting in front of 10 Forward.
Right.
This
but that's
2024 LA.
Picard happened to
has
beam in
CCTV.
right in front of a camera. But this
And
isn't
Girardi
London.
Girardi
But this
happened to
isn't
go.
London.
Girardi happened to go into a random bar that had CCTV. Like in this 2024, LA has CCTV everywhere. So why can't they use it to track her movements?
Do they? Does the city of Los Angeles have cameras everywhere?
Well, what would the camera be doing in front of like a back alley bar on Forward Street?
Is there a
What
security
would a
system?
camera be? No, that wasn't a security. That was CCTV. They
Yeah.
specifically said
It's-
FBI
it's certainly
specifically said
implied.
CCTV.
No,
You
he
know-
said the not time agent said that. He said he has
Yeah.
somebody that sends that monitors CCTV for I
Los
forget how he
Angeles.
put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
He has
for
he has
stuff
he has a
when people
friend
just
in the
materialize.
CCTV place. Yeah.
Yeah,
And also the CCTV footage in front of that bar that Girardi went into, right? Like why would there be a camera on that bar in particular if it wasn't
Yeah.
CCTV? So they have access to the CCTV footage. So why can't they track her using that? Or if she still has her comm badge on her, why can't they just track her comm badge?
It's kind of cute how Matt tries to make sense of this nonsense.
That's
my
why we're
favorite-
here.
that's
Yeah,
my
I mean,
favorite
That's
quote.
the purpose for
The
this
problem
stream,
is you're
so.
just looking at, I mean, honestly, I know that there are a lot of holes in the writing. I think that we can all agree with that. That there are, some inconsistencies. There are things they certainly could have done a lot better. The CCTV thing is one of them. But, I mean, we could just sit here and list everything that's wrong with the show.
But the thing that kills me about the writing is that they literally introduce the solution to the question that they're about to ask right before they ask it.
Right.
And it makes the characters look stupid. So let me ask you this. So as soon as they figure out where the bar was.
You're talking
they
about
go there.
Rafi, so the character is stupid.
Yeah, well, but Seven, what's her
Seven's
excuse?
not, yeah.
So Seven's looking at the tricorder and she's like, the tricorder's picking up some abnormal life signs. I don't know what that means, but abnormal life signs, but it's too far away or diminished to pinpoint. And Rafi's like, okay, so that means she's within a radius of 15 blocks. And then the bartender's like, oh yeah, she took a right down there. And then they turn the corner and she's like a block down that way. And you're telling me that the tricorder couldn't, like, that was too far away for the tricorder to pick up where the abnormal life sign was coming from, like 2 blocks away from where they were at.
Yeah, it's very inconsistent. It's very inconsistent.
Right. But the problem is that, again, if we look at the entirety of the canon of Trek, this is nothing new. If we look at Trek, sometimes they can pick up life forms on the planet. Sometimes they can just pick up generally vague, there might be life down there. Sometimes we can, the technology of Trek is wildly inconsistent, even within a singular show, as far as what certain devices can and cannot do. Can a phaser stun people from orbit? Because according to the original series, they can, and yet, boy, could that have, de-escalated a lot of situations.
Boy.
And yet they never used it.
I think the tricorders probably didn't work on the ship because of all the atmospheric interference from the radiation
From ions.
and ions and technobabble crap that's killing our planet right now. And the global
There
warming.
sure are a lot of
Plain-
ions.
It was global warming, Matthew. That is
hold
why.
up.
That is
Hey,
why it didn't work.
Matt, you
Climate change.
might. I know you're making a joke, but you might legitimately be onto something because let's say not global warming, but let's just say the massive amount of space garbage we have.
Yeah, space junk. Yeah.
Don't we have like millions of?
Yeah. Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about it all the time.
Yeah,
But before we keep going with the Rafi 7 stuff, I just want to point out that this episode really promoted violence against gingers, and I'm very much against that.
Yeah.
If you have red hair, you deserve to be killed because you didn't make out properly with the Borg Queen.
It's terrible.
Plus, you don't have a soul.
Yes. Okay,
I
so
don't have a problem with that.
So Rafi and Seven established that the Borg Queen needs stabilizing metals in order to create nanoprobes, and they figure this out by the fact that she ate the lithium battery in the redheaded ginger's cell phone, right?
Yes.
And then they hear a noise, and literally a block away, Girardi's going through each and every car, eating the car batteries. But the writers failed to Google, because when I looked up stabilizing metals, it said nickel, cobalt, lithium. And Seven specifically says that they need those metals.
They were thinking lead.
To create the nanoparticles to assimilate people.
Yeah.
But the metal in car batteries is lead.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So it's also
lead-
lead and acid, which is a destabilizing agent.
Well,
FYI.
it's lead
as
sulfate.
a former
and-
chemist.
It's lead sulfate and lead dioxide. That's what gives the car batteries their charge.
Right, but
So-
acid is a destabilizing agent. It actually it actually destabilizes
So-
heavy metals.
Maybe the batteries are made of different stuff in a year. Or two.
Yeah.
There,
So-
maybe they were all Teslas and we just didn't realize it.
They didn't look like Teslas.
Well, Tesla
man.
batteries aren't in the hood though; they're underneath
Yeah,
the car. And the
yeah.
I'm just trying to help them out.
And that was like a
okay?
1998 Jeep.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. It's like,
Yeah. So do the writers not know how car batteries work?
no, they don't.
No,
Clearly
of course
not.
they don't.
There's
Man. They
like-
definitely don't.
I mean, Matthew, why are you asking these questions as if? I mean, that's the problem. You're asking these questions like, well, gee, are the writers not properly researching how automotive mechanics work? Of course not. You know, that's one of the fundamental problems. Is that they're not. You know, their focus is, does it look cool? Does it sound cool? And is it selling? You know, their service. And right now, apparently it is, because, you know, they're still getting paid lots and lots of money to do it.
I just found it funny that they bothered to learn what a stabilizing metal was, and that lithium and cell phone
C4
batteries
in
were part of
Batman's
it.
face. Exactly, Jason.
And then then they were like, "Oh, all batteries must work that way."
Yeah,
So they just
to
assumed
their
that the
credit,
car
though,
battery-
it was very clever, linking lithium-ion batteries that everyone has in our time, right, in their phones, to a stabilizing metal. Very clever.
Yeah.
But like the second they got something clever, they started smelling their own farts, and they just stopped looking for clever
Right.
things.
What they should have done is had her running around grabbing everybody's cell phone.
Yes. Yes.
You know.
Well, that would have made her too easy to track.
When she's sitting there drinking battery acid, dude, that was too much for me.
It's quite literally the
you can't do
opposite
that.
of what if she's looking for stabilizing metals. That is the last thing you want to be ingesting.
Well, keep in mind that at this point, and I know you laugh at it, and I get that, you know, obviously if one of us was to take a big munch into a lithium-ion battery, or if we were to break open a car battery and start drinking the acid, you know, it would be game over time. But we are talking about someone who is infused with Borg nanites, and so at this point she is no longer human. And so it's not like, oh, well, the acid is just going to burn through Girardi. You know,
So let me ask you guys this: why were Raffi and Seven hunting down a Borg Queen? They know that Agnes is possessed by the Borg Queen without any weapons, without any like.
they had a phaser.
Well,
They didn't.
it's
They didn't have
because
a phaser.
I
Yeah, they
know
did.
why.
They tried to shoot her.
No, they
Because
Uh-huh,
Girardi's still in there. That's why they're trying to like go get
didn't.
Girardi.
Well, I mean, they could have stunned her.
Seven drew her weapon, and the queen kicked it out of her hand.
Yeah, that was
Must
so
have missed
sexy. Honestly, Danny, how sexy was that, bro? Oh my god.
So, Michael, answer me this:
Yeah.
How does the murder
Super
doctor
sexy.
who brutally killed her former lover have mercy?
Yeah, that I laughed out loud at that line when they said, mercy is not a Borg trait, and then Rafi said, "Yeah, it's a
Agnes must
Girardi
be
trait."
in
I was like, "Bull!" Yeah, no, it's like, yeah, and I immediately pictured Maddox screaming in agony as she stood over his corpse, and it's like, yeah, she's such a merciful doctor.
Yes,
you
so
know?
much mercy.
Yeah.
Great bedside manner. Where did Raffi get the combat boots from? At the end of episode 6, she was walking into the city holding her high-heeled red shoes. that
Oh,
matched
maybe
her
she
dress.
took them from Mr. Ginger.
Yeah, I just took him from Ginger, dude.
There's no way
outfit,
she'd be able to fit into Mr. Ginger's boots. That guy was like
Gingers
7 feet
have
tall.
notoriously tiny feet.
I mean,
Smell
look,
like cabbage.
if she has smaller feet, then she can fit in a larger shoe.
Well, no, like those boots fit her perfectly. I don't know if you saw them as she was walking away in slow motion, but
She stopped off at Big Six while she was wandering around.
Yeah, right. That's what it
all
is.
right. So
Now I think you're reading too deep into it. She just got some boots somewhere.
Oh, you know what? The replicator. We got him from the replicator. There we go.
Okay. I'll accept that answer, Danny. So
Quantum.
Seven points out that imperfect metals means imperfect assimilation, which means that the mercenaries that the Borg Queen assimilates at the end of episode 8 are going to be flawed in some way, which I just thought was important to point out, because apparently eating car batteries just means that you have inferior Borg.
I don't necessarily think flawed as much as not as powerful.
I know what I'm gonna make.
Like, I don't think we're going to see implants all over them as much as that they're just controlled by her.
Yeah, I think it'll be like, I think you're exactly right. We're not going to see the implants, or they're going to be like the little nanites and the little green effects, and that's probably going to be it. In fact, I think they showed a couple of them in the trailer for next week's episode on the ship with her.
All right. So we also saw a flashback where we actually got some relationship development between Raffi and Elnor. It explains why Raffi is such a nutcase about Elnor dying.
Yeah,
But
it
it
would have been
came
nice to
8
get into that
episodes
before.
into the season. What did you guys think of this scene?
It was actually, I thought, some decent backstory on Raffi. Raffi had actually a little bit of halfway decent development in episode 8. I like the fact that that it was confronted that she's a manipulator, that she actually admitted that she's a manipulator, and that we find out a little bit more about her whole thing, about why she is so overprotective of Elnor. But we really needed that relationship with Elnor before the why over the corpse.
Yeah.
I thought it was too little, too late, and
Right.
it just it didn't sell it to me at
Too
all.
many writers in the writer's room, man.
Yeah,
Yeah. No,
I told you all these episodes were written by one of 2 women in the writer's room.
it's like they were like, oh wow, everybody's complaining because they don't understand why she cares so much about Elnor. Let's just let's pigeonhole this in here real quick,
So
And-
I was going to talk about this when we talk about Rio's storyline, but like all the time that we're spending between Rio and Immigrant Doctor, like seeing how their relationship develops, like this should have been stuff that we saw with Raffi and Seven and Raffi and Elnor.
Exactly.
Like actual relationship building in
Right.
the show. As
So
opposed to like, we just have to accept that these people already have a very deep and established relationship.
Yeah, so I wanna say that I'm rescinding my previous theory, because I thought Rios was going to stay because of how much you talked about loving the 21st century. I think that there's no way they can't take the Doctor and her kid to the future now, like in Star Trek 4. They're going to have to, because
I told you they're going to repopulate Mexicans in the future. I've been telling you that. You just didn't believe me.
I think
Space Mexicans.
he's from Chile or whatever, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, she was
So,
from El Salvador.
These are Star Trek writers. They don't know the difference.
So
No, my nose a little bit.
I got to point this out. So after they lose Girardi, after Girardi basically kicks Seven and Raffi's asses and walks away very slowly to the point where like they can't possibly ever follow her or find her again, they decide to look at the Ginger's phone. They jumpstart it using their tricorder and look at her her search history, and after they get past all the porn, they find out where she's going to get the technology she needs. And we find out that Borg Jurati is going to Dr. Soon's house. And when she shows up, she's like, she has a line where she says, I suppose I don't need to lecture you on the futility of resistance. And Soon's looking at her like, is this a dream or a nightmare? And so my question to you guys is, how does Soon know who Jurati is, and how does he know who the Borg are to be intimidated by this? And why does Jurati think that he knows who the Borg are so that she has to say resistance is futile?
Well, let me ask you this, Matthew. You're in your basement. You look up at the top of the stairs. A blonde bombshell in a red dress with solid black eyes speaking with two voices says that line to you. What's your reaction?
My reaction is, hey,
I start taking my clothes off.
Yeah. You know,
honestly, it's an erection. That's my reaction.
You know,
I don't know why you guys get so horned up over her, man.
I don't either, Matt Baker. I don't.
Nothing for me. Nothing.
She is not.
She does nothing for me either. But I'm just saying, it's like I think that was a reasonable react. I mean, because Soon is
just telling jokes.
Man. I think that he looks up and he sees a woman that he sees as beautiful but utterly terrifying at the same time.
Well, no, what they did was they pulled a J.J. Abrams, and because the audience knows that Jurati is the Borg Queen, they assume that the character of Soon knows that she's the Borg Queen. And so, like, his reaction when she shows up, it's like, oh my God, the Borg Queen's in my house.
Yeah.
And it's just like, really, show? Really? This is how you're going to handle this?
See, I disagree. I think that she is very intimidating if you look at the fact that she's not speaking with a normal human voice and she has jet black eyes with no whites. I would think something's up, and it ain't good.
All right. So the Borg Queen accesses Soong's personal satellites, because apparently he's got a bunch of satellites that he can just get from his laptop.
Well, all disgraced doctors have satellites.
Yeah. Well, they don't tell you how he got those satellites or what
this guy's connected.
So
it's like Bruce Wayne. He's got his own satellite.
So the Borg Queen accesses his satellites, complains about how slow they are. So let me ask you this: why is the Borg Queen trying to institute a future where her entire race is wiped out to the point of extinction?
But she's not.
Yeah, what do you think? She's telling them the truth?
Yeah, come on.
Well, she kind of is.
No.
You think the Borg Queen is being completely honest with Soon?
Well, Soon is the reason for the Confederation timeline, right?
Right.
Yeah, but do you really think she's trying to create the Confederation timeline?
Yeah, she's trying to create another timeline.
She's trying to create the timeline we saw in First Contact.
Okay,
right.
so the 400-year jump start on assimilating the galaxy.
Yeah.
Okay. Real quick, boys, real quick, because I got a video coming out in about an hour and a half, and I'm gonna give you guys a sneak peek of my timeline I set up here, and I can explain all of this right now.
But before you get to that though, Brian, and I'll let you do it after this point. So the thing I was building up to is that Jurati Borg is basically laying the groundwork that she needs to take over the La Sirena in order to get the technology she needs to start doing her assimilation thing. And this is the big revelation that Seven and Raffi bring to Picard at the end of episode 8. So and she's getting these mercenaries that soon calls up a general friend of his that hooks him up with them, and then she starts assimilating the mercenaries because they're going to assault the La Sirena and take it over and make sure that Picard can't do anything, take it back. Now, Jurati, after the party, transports back to La Sirena, injects her Borg code in there so that they can't use the teleporter if they're looking for her, and then teleports back to LA to eat some batteries and find Soon off of the guy's cell phone. Like, she doesn't bother to access the internet through the ship while she's there. She just gets it off the cell phone. So if she wanted to take over the La Sirena, why not just lock out the transporter while she's there? Because everyone's off the ship. Take over the ship, use the replicators to make as many stabilizing metals as she wants to consume, and then use the ship.
Because then the show would be over.
Okay, so can you tell me why she decided to go this roundabout way?
Because then the
Taking
show
over the
would be
world?
over.
Well, I know this, but I'm asking within the logic of the show itself, why isn't she doing this?
Because then the show would be over.
I just want to say.
I'll give you logic. They didn't have enough
That might be
power to
Yeah.
interesting.
heat the joint, right? So maybe they don't have enough power to run the
Well,
replicator.
but they
Yeah.
fixed it. They're running the teleporters and stuff like it's nothing.
Yeah, but they didn't fix it when she escaped. They fixed it after she escaped.
Well, they fixed it after she escaped, but I mean, like she came back after they fixed it and took it over. Remember when she injected the Borg probes into the system?
Actually, I'll tell you a reason. Because she had not eaten batteries yet, right?
Well, I said why
She
not
had to
use
go
the
back to eat
replicators?
batteries.
Why not use the replicators to create all the stabilizing metals that she needed to eat?
Right. But maybe because she still wasn't in full control and needed to get those endorphins going. And she couldn't get the endorphins just hanging around on the ship.
Well,
that's a good
she
point.
needed the endorphins long enough to get the stabilizing metals. When she got the metals, she increased her control.
I'm just throwing a reason out there, Matt. You know, you
Well,
wanted a reason.
and I'm throwing logic back at you.
Yeah, but you know
Because
what?
this is all stuff-
You wanted some kind of reason. There's some kind of reason. I didn't say it was a great reason, but it's a reason.
And this is all stuff that they set up in the show, right? So, like, I'm not using headcanon to argue against you here. This is all stuff that they
Right.
firmly established in the series.
But had they just had her go back to the ship and assimilate the ship and then assimilate Earth and then it's over. And so guess what? Hey, from now on, every series is Star Trek Borg,
Yeah.
and they all just stand around and stare at each other.
Well, it also requires good writing to justify why that type of thing doesn't happen. So, Brian, let's hear your timeline thing, because I just wanted to point that out, that is like a huge plot hole in the show, that Girardi just didn't take over La Sirena, or whatever you call the ship.
La Serena.
La Serena right then and there, because she could have easily just done it right then and be off to the races. But now, like, we get this contrived, drawn out thing where, like, she has to recruit Dr. Soong and mercenaries and basically
Besides, what they would have done is
take over the
simply
ship.
rewritten it so that she couldn't have gotten to the ship then.
Yeah.
maybe, but we'll never know.
So
All
I
right,
do
go ahead,
have
Brian.
I have a video coming out after this stream, and it completely explains the paradox that Star Trek is in right now, and it gives a way out of the paradox. And we figured it out by sussing out the various timelines, and I think this is going to shine some light on it. So you have the prime timeline, that's our timeline at the top.
You might want to solo him.
Oh, yeah, you want to do that? I don't know. Should I send this to you or something? Or-
There we go.
All right, so the very top is the prime timeline. That's our timeline, right? That's our main timeline. In 2401, we get this Borg thing that comes out of nowhere, and it shows up, and it shifts everyone into, we're going to call it the corrupted timeline. In fact, let me add the titles real quick. Here we go. They get shifted to the corrupted timeline. Now, the corrupted timeline, they figure out that the corruption took place sometime in 2024. The Borg tells them that, right? They go back with the Borg Queen to 2024 to avert whatever that is. We don't know what that is yet. It's probably has something to do with Soon. Probably has something to do with Soon and Renee Picard. And I actually have a theory on that, but I don't want to kill my video, so you guys can watch the video later on. But there's something that happens that corrupts the timeline. Now, in their quest to fix the corrupted timeline, they release Girardi Borg Queen. And Girardi Borg Queen, in a third timeline, because this is branch timelines now, creates the Borg Queen timeline. Simulates all of Earth. She has zero resistance. The Borg are super powerful in that timeline. And 400 years from now, at some point, Girardi takes back control, and and that's what starts the cycle all the way over again, when she zips all the way to 2401, and she shifts Picard back into the corrupted timeline to try to correct the problem. That is what we're dealing with. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying that's what we're dealing with.
Oh boy, Brian, my brain hurts, bro.
Yeah. Oh, wait till you watch this video, bro. That's a tiny little taste. The video, we were working on it for like 3 days straight, and then Wednesday came out, and we had to rework everything for 2 days straight.
Right. See, I have a little bit of a different take on it. I think that, well, I don't know. Are we going to get into predictions as far as
At the end of the show,
yeah? So when we get into that, I'll tell you what I think is going to happen here.
All right, guys.
Well, my current thought of what's going to happen.
So I want to talk about Rios's storyline here for a second. So when Rios gets Picard back to the immigration free clinic, right? He brings the doctor there, and the doctor, fixes Picard, like whatever, leaves, goes back home to her kid, comes back the next morning, and at this point, not Laris is mind melding with Picard. And the doctor walks in, sees this, and she's like, what the fuck? And Rios is like, okay, let me explain what's going on. And then Picard starts having seizures, and the doctor's like, he's going to die if we don't do something. And what happens here, I don't know if you guys noticed this, Rios reaches into his pocket, takes out his comm badge. Remember the thing that he had left behind in the clinic? So he has it in his pocket. And he sets it down, and he says, Raffi, I need a neural oscillator to save Picard. And then he holds his hand over the comm badge, and it teleports in right then and there. Okay? So he has his comm badge at this point, right? Then he decides that he's going to break his cover as a time-traveling spaceman, tell the doctor and her kid about it, and then teleport them back to La Serena to show them his really cool spaceship. Now, when he teleports back, how does Star Trek teleportation work exactly? Like if no one's on the ship to teleport you, how do you do that yourself?
Well, we've never really had a privately owned spaceship as a hero ship, so presumably you can hit a remote control.
Okay, so the remote control is usually the comm badge, correct? So
we don't know.
So, well, let's assume that it is, because they haven't introduced any other thing that controls teleportation.
No, that's not true. They have remote teleportation in Voyager.
Okay, but in Star Trek Picard, they haven't introduced anything other than the comm badges being the thing responsible for personal teleportation, right? Am I correct in that?
We don't know. We've only seen 2 seasons.
And
All
I
right,
do
so
know as much as that is what it will be by the 32nd century. Is everything
So
is controlled by the
anyway,
comm badge.
Rios somehow tells his ship to teleport him and the doctor and her kid back to the ship. Now, later on, the FBI, not time agent guy, comes in, puts down Rios's comm badge, and says, "We just searched the free clinic. We found this future tech." So how did Rios teleport him and 2 other people back to the spaceship and leave his comm badge behind for the FBI to find it? And how did the FBI identify that as future tech? Because it just looks like a belt buckle.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's true.
Because
if
he
the
looked
writers-
very carefully on the CCTV footage and saw it on Picard's lapel.
If the writers gave
I mean,
like a fraction of the fucks that we give, like
So not time agent wasn't the one who searched the free clinic. It was these random FBI agents. How would they know to identify that as future tech?
So I'm going to bust in here really quick. So this is what you got to do, Matt. You got to go to the next Star Trek convention, okay? And when the writers and Kurtzman are up on the stage, you need to go over to one of those little podiums and be that nerd that
please.
sticks his finger and puts his glasses up and spell it out for him. Can you explain to me how the comm badge got from here to here and there to there? And you really take us out of the show.
Though.
I know, but
this is just people who watch the show and pay attention.
I just really want them to explain this stuff, and it's going to take people like us to go to the conventions and ask these questions. It's just like the World of Warcraft guy is like, is this a joke? What are you doing to us here? You're killing me. It's just
they probably
that was Diablo.
Yeah, I know, but still, it was just these questions are all legit and they're all ridiculous because it's like you said, man, these writers, they don't check themselves and they're getting caught here. This is you busted them. They're caught here. There's a paradox or whatever you want to call it, a fuck up. It's just awful.
Talking about fuck up. So I want to point this out because it has to do with Rio's storyline, and I'm hoping you guys can at least attempt to explain this to me, right? So Picard gets run over by Dr. Soong, right? And they're like, oh, a bio bed is not a doctor. Let's take him to the free clinic, which is also not a doctor, and get a doctor to come see him. And so they somehow get him to a free clinic. I assume that they're teleporting him there. And they go and get the immigrant doctor to come in and, treat Picard because she's no questions asked. And then later on, in order to impress her enough to sleep with her, Rios is like, hey, come check out my spaceship. And then he teleports her onto the spaceship in direct violation of Picard's orders not to fuck with the timeline and reveal themselves because it could impact the future, right? In a way that they can't fix. So basically Rios just throws all the temporal rules out the window because he likes this chick and wants to sleep with her. Now,
he did
a proper way to have written this stuff would be they teleport Picard back to the bio bed. None of them are doctors because Girardi's out in the wind, so they don't know how to fix whatever's wrong with him. So Rios teleports back to LA, goes to immigrant doctor. It's like, please help us. She's like, no, you're a crazy person. I don't want to help you. And he's forced to teleport her and her son because he doesn't want to leave him unattended back to the ship in order to save Picard's life because his hand was forced to do so. Now, that's how you would properly write this show.
Stop writing a better show, Kadish. Come on.
Like, I am shocked at the level of cavalierness that comes with it's like at a certain point he's just like, okay, I'm going to bring you back to my ship because I already told you I'm the spaceman, so like I might as well show you the goods.
He's like, I did think it was cute that he said the Captain Kirk line where he was like, I'm from Chile. I only work in outer space, instead of Iowa or whatever.
Yeah, nice throwback to
Yeah.
But no,
I think that's how they're writing Rios' stuff though. They're just how many throwbacks can we put into the storyline?
It's gonna be. I'm telling you, he's gonna repopulate Mexicans in the future.
Oh yeah, they're definitely gonna. They have to go back in the future with them.
So guys, to round out Rios, the stuff I want to talk about with Rios, because his relationship with immigrant doctor is just it is what it is. It's whatever. So there's a point where Not Time Cop comes in and confronts Picard with a file from ICE that not only identifies Rios as one of the 6 imposters at the Europa mission ball, but also has a verbatim recap of verbatim transcript of what Rios told the ICE agent when he was locked up, in LA before he got on the bus. So I want to ask you guys, number one, how did that ICE agent remember all that crazy talk from an immigrant to write it down verbatim, submit it to the ICE database to the point where the FBI could access it? And number two, how did Rios, who had no ID, never gave him his name, all that stuff, how was he identified by the FBI as being in the ICE database? Because they just had his picture.
Matthew.
Oh, I know. You actually don't know this, but off screen they said that that guard was actually autistic.
Yeah. He definitely understood everything he said. Definitely.
You're gonna drive yourself insane. You have to
know what? That's the problem. You're reading. Look, I get it. I know that it's annoying to you that they make these mistakes. It's annoying to me too. But I'm not gonna. It's one thing to like if it's a show that's like I'll tell you. You know what drives me crazy? What absolutely drives me crazy is every single time I watch Star Trek 2 and Saavik tells us that when they go into the nebula, it's going to cloud their tactical display and visual won't function because that line is backwards. It'll cloud their visual display and tactical won't function. It bugs me every single time that made it into the final cut. That drives me crazy. There's no excuse for it. And it's canonically incorrect. You know what doesn't drive me crazy? Little nitpicky things in a show that has larger issues.
You know what drives me nuts? The Kazon in Voyager. They're the worst.
Oh, God, do you mean the broccoli-headed Klingons?
Oh my God!
Hey, guys, I
they
tried.
They can't even find water, but yet they can fly spaceships. That doesn't make any sense.
You have water? Oh, hey, our warp drive's not working right.
I tried, but this discussion is driving me to drink. So I'll be back.
Okay.
I've got to pour a beverage.
But the thing that gets me is not Time Cop, right? He sits down, he's interrogating Picard. He says, like, you are identified as one of 6 party crashers at the Europa mission. And he shows the whole crew. He shows Seven, he shows Raffi, he shows Girardi, he shows Rios. And it's like, okay, they spent an entire episode talking about how they Ocean 11 their way in with fake identifications that they uploaded directly to the database to prove that they were false identities, right? So the database couldn't identify them as anything other than who they said they were. So how does the FBI know that, okay, I could justify Picard and maybe Rios, but Seven, Raffi, and Girardi, like how do they know that those people were party crashers or imposters?
I don't think there's an answer to your question. I just think it's just
Sure there is. It's what I
poorly
just said.
put together, and it's like it's like the chat's kind of implying. I think if this was a good show, we might be a little less critical of some of this stuff.
Right.
But the fact that it's not a good show, it's a terrible show, it makes it easier for us to point out these weak plot holes and contrivances in the script. It's just not a good show, guys. And I don't really know how to make any more excuses for it. It's just it's bad. That's the bottom line. It's bad. And we as Trekkies and as lifelong fans of this franchise, it hurts us in a weird way more so than the normies out there when they do this. It's just it's bad. I don't know what else to say. I don't want to like get super deep into it because it's just hard. It's hard.
See, I don't even think that it's bad as much as it's just not up to the standard of Trek. And I don't, and because I mean, bad to me is like early Discovery is bad, right? This is not early Discovery bad. This is okay.
I actually think it's worse.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. I think that it's. I think that it's overly padded. I think that if we trimmed out the Rio sideline by getting arrested thing, I think that if we trimmed out the Picard coma thing, I think if we trim out all the side quests, it's actually kind of interesting. The problem is what we have here is like a 4-hour miniseries stretched out into a 10-hour series.
I'll tell you why I think it's worse in just a second, Michael. But Dennis Wright for $4.99 says, you take voluminous notes while watching Trek for the in-depth analysis. I don't. This is just stuff that pops out to me when I'm watching it. And I wrote notes this morning because I wanted to cover all this stuff because we're 2 weeks behind. But Michael, the reason I think it's worse than Discovery is because you're taking a character that was beloved and well-written and well-established and ruining him with this terrible writing.
Well,
and I
see,
know
maybe
that
that's why I don't think it's as bad, because to me, Picard isn't that beloved.
Okay, well, I grew up with Picard. He's my captain.
I didn't.
I loved him.
I grew up with Kirk.
But the point I'm trying to make is like this stuff isn't nitpicky. I mean, maybe it's a little nitpicky. But
a little nitpicky.
It's nitpicky.
All these things add up to create the bigger problems, right? So like the devil's in the details. As a storyteller myself, as a published novelist, as a writer, I've written screenplays before. I've worked in Hollywood. If you're a good writer, this type of stuff doesn't happen. They were able to do multiple seasons of Star Trek in the past without running into a fraction of these problems. Now, not all the Star Trek shows were perfect, but the level of bad writing on display here was never an issue in previous seasons. Danny, go ahead.
Super chat.
Oh, thank
you
you,
missed
Danny.
that. Thanks, though.
So I want to talk about Guinan for a second.
Well, can I say one thing though?
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
I have to actually disagree with you on one level. I don't think that you're going to find seasons of prior Trek that don't run into these problems. It's just that what you're going to run into is prior seasons of Trek where it's episodic, so that for the really bad crap, you kind of push those aside and think about the really great Trek. You're not thinking about, you're not thinking about episodes like Code of Honor. You're thinking about episodes like The Inner Light. You're not thinking about crap like The Naked Now. You're thinking about moments like Chain of Command. And so when you're basically putting a filter on it because you can. The problem with shows like Picard and Discovery is that you have to take the entire season as one extended adventure. That's the flaw.
That's the flaw.
So
You're
here's
right.
the
But
thing,
it
guys. I'm
can
out
be
of
done
booze,
properly.
So I'm going to get extraordinarily salty for the rest of this show. So I'm sorry, because like I'm over here twitching. I'm just like,
That's fine. I'm going to set you loose in a minute, Danny. But I want to talk about Guinan now. And by the way, Michael, very well said.
Yeah.
Basically,
Sorry, I
all-
didn't mean to go on a
they
tangent.
can't all be
no,
measure of
no.
a man. We get it.
No,
We
it's
get
fine.
it.
It's fine. So Guinan decides to stick around for a few extra days after she was already packed up, ready to go.
Why not?
For no apparent reason. She's just like, you're looking
I know, like,
stuck
I
around for
forgot
a few
how
extra
great
days.
you guys are.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask the Trek experts on the panel, Brian and Michael. They mentioned that there was a Cold War between the Q continuum and the El-Aurians.
Continuum?
Continuum.
Have you been drinking?
Yes.
Right. What's in that? What's in that?
So like, I wanted to ask you guys: is that established canon, or is that something that they just
No, that's
introduced for the
new.
show?
That's just
Yes.
made up.
That's all new, man.
And
So-
don't
so
just say
what
made
is-
up.
what-
All fiction is made up.
So what is a
Yeah.
Cold War between the Q and another?
That didn't
race
come up
look
in
like?
Generations.
Yeah, I gotta tell you. No, it didn't. Here's the
Okay.
deal. I gotta tell you. I think that might be laying the groundwork, foreshadowing, laying the foreshadowing groundwork. I'm not
Laying the foreshadowing
I have
ground.
no idea how to express this, but they need to put another race on the same level as Q to
The El-Aurians.
explain his issues. I don't think it's the El-Aurians, but I think that we're going to meet another race by the end of season 3 that can counter Q, and I think that it's a part of the same race that runs Gary 7 people.
And you know what? I think that there's also something to be said that and I really do hope they do this. I think that there's a good possibility we're going to see, hopefully, a little more about what is this whole thing with the El-Aurians holding up and ready to be in a defensive posture against the Q. What is their beef with each other? I want to know more about that.
Yeah, I mean,
That's something I've wanted to know for a long
their beef
time.
is well established. The problem I have right now is that all of a sudden all the El-Aurians have like all these superpowers that no one was made aware of.
Real
Right.
quick, Danny.
Super chat.
So from Full Metal Smile for Canadian $5, thank you, sir. I agree with Matt Kadish. This is worse than Discovery by indulging Patrick Stewart with personal demands, therefore eroding Picard and canon into oblivion. So
Agreed.
the whole thing about a Cold War is that it's a war by proxy, right? It's where like you're influencing other stuff to work against a particular enemy. So it's not a hot war where they're like fighting like directly, it's indirect fighting.
Right.
And so what I'm wondering is how are the El-Aurians fighting gods basically? Like what's going on there?
Well, it means that they're gods themselves. But we don't know,
I think-
that's the problem. We don't know what they're capable of.
Wasn't Brian? Weren't you the one that was saying that the reason the Q fear them is because basically the El-Aurians are immune to their powers or something like that? Was that
Yeah,
you?
well, that was my
that's,
theory.
that's not established. That's his
not
theory.
established.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
that was a theory I had for years.
Uh-huh.
Because even though it's not established, there are several instances, 2 I can remember off the top of my head, in TNG where Q manipulates everyone on the ship or everyone in a room or whatever, and Guinan is always untouched. When he removes everyone from 10 forward, she's still behind the bar. When he injects everyone into the Robin Hood thing, she's not there. It's almost like, for whatever reason, his manipulations don't work on her.
Right.
Well, not just that, but El-Aurians seem to be immune from changes to timelines in general.
Right.
Which we have seen that in canon.
So,
like in yesterday's Enterprise and such.
The El-Aurians can stand their ground against the Q continuum, which are basically beings with complete control over space and time, but they're wiped out by the Borg.
No, I don't think they can. I don't think they can stand their ground. I think that they just have a unique ability, and I still think this. I think part of their ability, because maybe they're a little higher on the food chain than us regular humans, is they have the unique ability to withstand Q's machinations. But that doesn't mean that they can't be physically harmed by something like the Borg. And even, let's be real, in Voyager, even the Q were afraid of the Borg to an extent. They literally said, like,
the Q are afraid of the Borg, I think.
Yeah, we do not piss off the Borg. We don't mess with we don't mess with the Borg. Why? They are so afraid of the Borg, and we don't know why yet, but it's possible that
I don't think they know why either. I think it is.
That's established in previous canon that they are also afraid of the Borg, so it's not just the El-Aurians.
All right, so let me ask you guys this: so, out of all the things that Guinan could possibly carry with her as she travels from planet to planet throughout the universe, why does she happen to have the Q Truce bottle in her bar that allows her to summon the Q?
Probably every El-Aurian's got a bottle of Q Truce.
That was something else, right? That was
talk about plot contrivances.
I mean, let's have this bottle of, what was that, Saurian brandy or something that.
It wasn't Saurian brandy. It was
no. In the first episode where we see her,
yeah.
There's a bottle of alien liquor just sitting out on a counter.
I just would think that the magic Q genie bottle would be something that you would have known about before now.
Well, maybe there isn't one bottle.
This is very strange.
Maybe there isn't just one bottle. Maybe many El-Aurians have a bottle that contains the essence or whatever.
Here's all I know. Every time I feel a little earthquake under my feet going forward from now on for the rest of my life, I'm just going to think somebody's summoned a Q somewhere nearby. So that's just how I'm going to roll.
But it also does show, at least conceptually, that El-Aurians, at least at some level, have abilities that Qs cannot resist.
All right, so let me ask you guys this. So we get Not Time Cop coming into the 10 forward bar, sits down, has a glass of wine. Picard and Guinan start resuming their conversation, and then it's revealed Not Time Cop has on his phone footage of Picard
Why do you
teleporting.
keep calling him Not Time Cop?
Because he's not Time Cop.
Because he's not the time cop that he should be. Why would they use the same freaking actor?
Yeah.
Hey, calm down. Calm down, Danny.
We're going to get to it, Danny. All right. So once he confronts Picard about him teleporting in front of 10 forward days ago, the FBI shows up and arrests them. Now, how did those FBI agents sneak into the bar without Guinan or Picard seeing them? Because they have to walk downstairs from the front entrance, and I assume that the back entrance is locked because that's for deliveries and stuff like that. So how did they get into the 10 forward bar all of a sudden to do the raid?
That's just another one of those things that is driving your brain crazy. I mean,
how did the FBI know that Picard was even there to begin with?
Yeah, you're right.
Because the
How
footage
does
was
the
from days ago.
FBI know that you're there anytime they do a raid?
Yeah.
They survey the place, they see that you're in there, and then they go in.
Okay, I'll accept that.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. I mean, you're
You're,
right.
you're overthinking it.
The FBI
so-
is surprisingly adept at causing people problems. So
let's talk about Not Time Cop, because I know Danny's about to burst a blood vessel over there. Now, Brian, explain why we're calling him Not Time Cop to the masses out there.
Yeah, because the actor that plays the FBI agent also played the time agent in Voyager. and it makes no sense. It makes no sense that if he is just a throwaway FBI agent, why would you even bother getting a character that was already on the show? Just get a different character, get a different actor. It would probably cost you less money to get a different actor. Getting the same actor is just mean.
Can I answer
it's
trolling
just mean to track.
They're trolling us with this.
No. Can I answer that?
Go ahead.
There are literally dozens, if not hundreds, of actors that have played multiple roles on Trek.
This is true. No, this is true.
But he's a time agent, and they're
the
time
fact that he
traveling.
was a time agent. I mean, how many different roles did I can't remember her name, but the lady that played Pulaski played 2 roles on TOS.
Yeah, but here's the thing. One, there was a huge passage of time with no.
Not on TOS. She played 2 different bombshells on TOS.
Fair enough. My other point, though, is usually a lot of these actors. So, like the guy who was the admiral in Enterprise, he was a Klingon in Next Gen,
Right.
And so they'll do.
And how long ago was
Jeffrey
he
Combs
time
played
Jeffrey
like 15
Combs.
characters.
Yeah, but they usually hide him with makeup or something, so it's not as obvious. I mean, this guy is just the same looking dude, just 30 years later.
So I do want to point out that actor is friends with Terry Matalas, and Terry Matalas obviously threw him the role. But I remember at the end of episode 7, when it was revealed he was an FBI agent, Shane and Brian, in their review, talked about the character that actor played in Voyager, how he was a time cop, and their theory was that he's reprising that role because of all the timey-wimey bullshit that's going on in this season.
Exactly what I thought was
and if that had been the case, that would have been brilliant. It would have actually fed into the story. As it stands, we have a side quest where an FBI agent who's basically a low-rent Mulder from X-Files shows up, arrests Picard for no reason, holds him for an entire episode, and then lets him go.
But
and it's like there was no point to that story.
And you're ignoring stuff, and you're overthinking it at the same time. I happen to really like the Carbon Creek tie-in. I loved it. I thought that the fact that this is someone who encountered the Vulcans from Carbon Creek, and
can you explain what Carbon Creek is?
Basically
it's an Enterprise.
It's an Enterprise episode.
That's amazing, but there was Carbon Creek happened way before 1985 or whatever it was. That guy was a kid. He wasn't.
He was
more like in the
man,
70s. You know,
the time.
You don't think the time adds up, right? That they could have been the Vulcans from, because didn't they say the Vulcans came back to get?
That's the case.
Well, I think it's the Vulcans, because they said, T'Pol said at the end of Carbon Creek that the Vulcans went back to get them, and it was a long time later.
Okay,
So that's Carbon Creek took place in 1957. So I don't think the time.
No. Danny, Mike's right, because the Vulcans came back after that story to get the Vulcans that were stranded there. If that's the case, that is a really awesome tie-in. And anytime you can tie in some Enterprise, please, because I feel like they're like the redheads proud of this. Like
so what I think is those Vulcans, that was the expeditionary force to get the Vulcans out of Carbon Creek. Otherwise, they would have tried to get someone who looked like T'Pol, which would have been awesome if they had actually just reused some footage from Enterprise or something. But
Black is not even. She's not even that old looking. She looks fine. She could.
Well, yeah, but they would have had to keep her deep in the shadows, though.
That's true.
So I need to go ahead, Matt.
I was just gonna say the reusing actors that have been in old shows thing doesn't bother me, I guess, as much as it bothers you guys. You know, we all know that Star Trek has reused actors from previous episodes and different iterations of the show. They kind of keep it in the family. I mean, I think a lot of people in Hollywood do that. How many J.J. Abrams shows has Greg Gumberg shown up in? You know, it's just that I have no issues with that at all.
Yeah, so, I did a recut of Balance of Terror where I made a joke out of the fact that Spock's dad was trying to kill the Enterprise.
Yeah. Now I do think it's kind of funny that, I mean, I get the not time cop thing because he is playing kind of a similar character, and a lot of times they do this. They're covered in alien makeup or something, but
Yeah,
not
but
that's
this
not a
one's
deal breaker
this
for
one's a
me.
little more opaque because
Yeah.
he played. It's all timey-wimey. It's a time travel series right now, and he played a time travel agent who directly interacted with 7 of 9. It just sort of
Yeah.
it would have worked. And Matt said it would have been better had they done it. Yes, they
Right.
can use whatever actor they want, sure, but it's a little different, I think, when they use a character that's literally in a time agency that is outside, that's time traveling for his job, and they're time traveling back to 2024.
Yeah, and as far as
Yeah,
the
I mean,
Carbon Creek,
yeah.
as far as the Carbon Creek stuff goes, I don't, that doesn't really bother me either, because it's like the chat said, it could have been a different survey mission that this guy interacted with. It's fine.
About Carbon Creek is for me, Carbon Creek was so long ago, but the way you put it now, that I actually think that's super cool. That's amazing, because Carbon Creek is one of my favorite episodes of Enterprise.
But before I get into my next time cop issue, Danny, I want to give you the floor just because I know that you've been chomping at the bit to talk about this part. So anything you want to say about not time cop, the storyline?
It's pretty much already been said. I mean, Brian and I are on the exact same page, and it bothers me quite. I know, like, I concede all the points that Mike and Vader made, but it just seemed like a real dick troll move to me. Like, because it just, like, you know, really, I have nothing to add. I just, other than that, I mean,
It rubs you the wrong way.
Yeah, everything Brian said.
No, I agree.
Plus,
I
Terry
agree.
Metalis worked on that episode. Oh my god, it would have been
All right,
so perfect.
Yeah.
So at the end of episode 8, Guinan has a talk with Not Time Cop where she says, we El-Aurians believe in the ebb and flow of time. Sometimes bad stuff has to happen for good stuff to happen later on. And she's like, if you hadn't experienced the trauma that you had, then you wouldn't be letting us go now. And he's like, oh, so it was fate, you know? And it's supposed to be a really big moment in the episode, because Picard basically recruits him by helping him deal with his childhood trauma and stuff like that. But I can't help but point out the fact that they wouldn't have been arrested if it weren't for him in the first place. So he's basically the solution to the problem he himself created. If he hadn't had that trauma as a child, he'd have never gone into the FBI. He'd have never believed in the science fiction stuff. He'd have never arrested Picard. He wouldn't have had that friend at the CCTV station sending him strange things, right? So, like, this notion that he did something, noble at the end, it was like, well, he arrested you in the first place. He's the one who took you away from the main storyline for an entire episode. And the thing that really got me about episode 8 was that this whole FBI subplot that they introduced at the end of episode 7 went literally nowhere.
Right.
Like, there was no reason for it. It didn't advance anything.
Nope.
I agree. Well, and that's been a symptomatic problem of this whole season, as well as season 4 of Discovery, is where they have a clear destination for the story, but then they just keep throwing little things in the way to slow down the progress to get there. And because for they just don't have enough meat to take up 10 episodes to get there. And what I think would have been really a better episode, and if I were going to throw an elevator pitch at the writers of this episode, was, okay, complete change of venue. Have the FBI guy come down into the bar. The entire episode takes place at 10 forward. Where he confronts Guinan and Picard. He has them dead to rights. He shows them what he's got. He actually has his box of evidence with him. And he says, I'm going to haul you guys in. I've got everything I need. I can prove there's extraterrestrials. I can take this to my superiors and all that. And they go around in circles, kind of verbally sparring, and first they try to deflect, then they try to laugh it off and all that. And then they finally get around to where he talks about where he was assaulted, and then Picard does the, "Are you sure it wasn't this?" and shows him the mind meld. And then at the end, they have an ally. And so now we have an FBI guy who is part of some special task force who's, hey, we all know Project Blue Book or whatever, and he's part of some task force that's looking for extraterrestrials, and he says, well, let me tell you, there is a threat out there, and we need your help. And so now they're all going to Chateau Picard to defend against the Borg threat that's about to attack.
Well, as it stands, this guy just got fired from the FBI.
Exactly.
So,
instead of the
point to
nowhere
him.
game.
There's no point to him.
Well, maybe he can go. Maybe he can go back to the future with.
All right.
Well, he can help repopulate Mexicans.
Yeah. So I need I need to point out one of the most unintentionally hilarious scenes in this episode, which is where they separate Guinan from Picard, and Q shows up, and he's wearing an FBI jacket, and the FBI lady is like, "This way, sir." And Q comes in, and I'm like, okay, so first of all, Q doesn't have his powers at this point. So how is he disguising himself as an FBI agent to the point where other FBI agents who he's never met before are acknowledging him as an FBI agent and leading him to a suspect in an interrogation room?
Yeah, I don't know.
That one, I'm willing to it's like an impotence thing. Maybe he's not completely lost his powers. He can do little parlor tricks like that.
Maybe.
I got the impression that Q can influence people. Q can still he can fool you, he can influence you, but he cannot like vaporize you or teleport himself around or do, big changes to things. He's just extremely limited to what he could probably alter his appearance. And he could probably, make himself appear to be whatever he wants to appear to be.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I don't think that he could teleport himself to Chateau Picard.
Yeah, I think that he still
he
has
obviously
some
can't teleport
limited,
because he had to drive to the FBI agent, field office.
I think he still has some limited powers left. And
Yeah.
I think
Because he's not human. He's a Q.
Yeah, let me ask you guys this though. Like, how
real quick. I think that my theory is that the end of Q, like the death of Q, and we see on screen, will be him using his powers one last time.
I don't want to see the death of Q.
I think it's. I think we talked about this last night, Michael. I think it's all. I think the continuum is dying, and not just our Q. I think the whole continuum have kind of hit. We were really getting into this kind of a deep discussion last night about how time isn't linear to the Q. So like their ability to time travel or jump in and out of places in time don't really affect them. They kind of live outside of what we understand as linear time. And I think the Q's time is coming to an end, unfortunately. And what do you, I'd love your take on this, Brian, because you weren't in that discussion last night. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's either it's an outside force or it's just straight up entropy. And they've been around for billions and billions and billions of years. And look, I don't care what kind of a god you are. I don't care what kind of a being you are, where you're at. Entropy catches up with everything.
Yeah,
even Q.
And that's kind of the opinion that Q seemed to be giving.
Yeah.
Right. Let me ask you guys something. So Guinan summoned Q at 10 forward, and yet he shows up at the FBI field office. How did he know to go to the FBI field office instead of 10 forward, which is where she summoned him?
You're overthinking again. He was drawn to Guinan.
That's I think of it like a delayed text message. I don't know.
Right. But he was drawn to Guinan. He wasn't drawn to the building.
Yeah,
I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but you're right. You just kind of have to accept it.
Guinan's the only El-Aurian on Earth.
All right, so can El-Aurians astral project? Is that part of their power set?
Apparently, yes.
When was this introduced?
Yeah,
this week.
Yeah, today. On this episode.
So, what do you guys think about just like giving Whoopi Goldberg's character all these powers that she never had before?
Okay, what did you think of it when we saw Q Who?
I mean, the Q are set up to be
and Q Who out of nowhere, Whoopi Goldberg suddenly could kung fu into space and hold off Q. I mean, they do stuff like that. So everything has to have an origin.
We've been
How about the
asking
first
this
time
question
Spock
for
did a
30
neck
years.
pitch? They did that out of thin air.
Well,
Or the-
I just watched a video on Twitter about that the other day. That was really cool. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
he came up with that himself.
Yeah. How about the first time they did a mind meld, or the first time that they did a phaser on stun, or the first time they did a photon torpedo?
Well, I was under the impression that the El-Aurians didn't have superpowers for the most part.
Yeah, Mike, I'm with you on that, but they introduced so much so quickly. Like all those examples were subtle things that they introduced slowly.
Right.
They just gave her all these powers like in a matter of 4.5 minutes.
And if
they gave her
have all these powers, what about Zorn or what was his name from Generations?
Yeah, Zorn.
Zorn, yeah. What about like shouldn't have he been way more of a badass then? I mean, he does kill Captain Kirk, but you know.
Well, to be fair, she doesn't actually have any. That doesn't look like she has any offensive powers.
Right. She can. So she can basically vaguely communicate with Picard, and it looked like it nearly knocked her out to do it.
Yeah, some kind of astral projection.
John DeMarco makes a really good point in the chat, by the way.
She's sensitive to time alterations. You know,
right. She's always been sensitive to time alteration.
Yeah.
And she's always been able to kung fu the air for whatever reason to hold off Q.
Even if you look at their race might be kind of like the Q, where the time isn't linear to them, because like in yesterday's Enterprise, she even though she was there with them, she knew it was wrong. Like you know, so,
right? But she even knew specifics. She knew Tasha was dead.
Yeah, like you're not supposed to be here. No, I haven't known you. I wasn't never supposed to meet you and stuff like that. So they've established those kind of powers, if you will, but like Brian said, never any offensive, you know.
Right, and she still doesn't seem to have any real offensive abilities.
So guys, Renee Picard has been basically the linchpin of this season's central plot. Everything revolves around Renee Picard. Last time we saw Renee Picard, she was with Jean-Luc when he got run over by a car. And then the next thing we hear about it, it's like, oh, she's in quarantine. She's all set to go, and you know, like the Europa mission is you know saved. And I would think that watching this old man get hit by a car, you know, she'd at least like make like, you know, a police report, or like she'd have like some type of trauma associated with that would screw up the fact that she's still going into the Europa mission. And they just kind of write her off like, oh, she's fine. Like not Lars says like,
do we really want to have a little tangent part of the episode of her filling out a statement in the security office?
I'd rather see that than Rafi and Seven.
I don't think
I get that, but if they have her break quarantine, then they're back to, well, I guess we screwed up.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it just seems unrealistic to me that she would witness this like horrible crime and then just be like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna go into quarantine now.
Well, if it's a mission, they're going to Europa, and it's like, okay, what do? It's like, well, I can file a police report, and all the people that were there at the scene said, no, go on the Europa mission. We'll take care of him.
I mean, it's not just the police report, though. It's the trauma associated with having seen that happen. Because she was already
Picard himself pushed her out of the way and just finished telling her how important it is that she go.
Yeah, but she was also still struggling with the psychological issues that she was dealing with, right? And so,
but you're just looking for reasons for the show to be bad. I don't think that it's wrong.
I'm asking
that she's
questions about the show's logic. Like they literally make her out to be the linchpin of the whole like time travel stuff, and then they just kind of excuse her off by saying like, oh, we solved that problem, so like now let's.
They did solve it.
You're assuming the writers apply logic to a show that has none.
I don't think the show has no logic. I think that the problem is that you are presuming from the assumption that the show is going to explain things from a perspective that they're not going to. That you want the show to do things. You want the show to follow her. When they're following, the show's not called Star Trek Renee. It's called Star Trek Picard.
I want the show to tell a good story. And if you have this character who's central to the solution of the main plot line, you don't just write her off for 3 episodes with one line saying like, oh, she's good after witnessing a guy get run over.
Well,
especially a guy who actually reached out to her and made a connection to her.
if the major point of her whole arc is she's got to get into quarantine by 0900, then you're not going to see her after 0900 if you're successful.
That's not the major point of her arc, though. The major point of her arc is to solve her trauma so that she's willing to do the mission.
Right. But in order to do the mission, she has to go into quarantine. That is a requirement of the mission. She's on the mission right now.
She can go into quarantine and be like, I can't do this mission because I'm fucked up in the head, right? Like the whole point here is that Picard's team was trying to convince her that she's good enough to do the mission, so she'd go forward with the mission to help her get over her depression, right?
But I think you're overthinking that. That's the focus of the show right now.
Well,
I don't think that's the focus of the show.
You're right; it's not the focus of the show, but it's the central plot line. It's the central point of the main plot line.
I don't think that's ever been the focus. I don't know. I don't think that's ever been the focus.
Maybe.
I think that's where you're missing the point. The central focus plot line from very beginning to the very end has been the Borg, not her. She's just one of the points along that path.
Yeah, she's a red herring.
That comment, I was about to use that exact same phrase, red herring. That comment from Daniel Hall is like really.
I disagree. I don't think that the show is bad. I think that the problem is that this is not a show about Renee Picard. This is not this is not a show just about the Europa mission. Okay, this is a show about the Borg. And I think that these other sideline things are things that are leading up to what's ultimately happening with the Borg.
They set up already. And I think this is what Kadish is getting to. They set up that if Renee Picard does not go on this mission, that is what causes the Confederate timeline or whatever. They've set that up, so it is important.
No, it's not. That's misdirection, bro.
I get that, and it very well may be, but I'm just saying
it definitely is.
This is what they've set up for.
So like I don't disagree with you guys that the Renee Picard thing is a red herring. I do think that Q's Ewing that.
I think it is and it isn't. I'll get to that when we get to our predictions.
I'll say this: they've spent 3 to 4 episodes focused entirely on Renee Picard, and you don't spend that much time on someone just to say like, okay, problem solved. Let's you dismiss her with one line of dialogue, and it's like
she just got her life saved by this old man she had some like Hallmark moment with, and she witnesses him. From her point of view, he's probably dead, and he's like an 80-year-old man that got ran over by a Tesla or whatever, and in saving her life. So I don't know, like. I think it deserves a little bit more than one line of dialogue.
Was she there when they teleported Picard to the free clinic? I mean, what did she see after that happened? Like, it's so weird that they just kind of like wrote her off the show for no good reason. So real quick, I want to talk about Soon and Not Soji before we get to final thoughts. So in this episode, Not Soji basically uses a VR headset to recreate her father's office, which she apparently has full access to anyway.
Yeah.
And then Q shows up as a computer virus program that he put in when he hacked into Soon's system. And then like the minute that she takes the headset off, a delivery is executed almost instantaneously. So like I'm wondering what you guys thought of this. Why did she need to create a VR version of her dad's lab that she has full access to anyway, and how did that delivery happen so fast?
I was just happy to see John Delancey, back on the screen.
He was great in that scene, but it didn't make any sense.
He was really good in that scene.
Yeah,
I mean that was typical Hollywood writing right there. I mean, where the second someone finishes telling you there's going to be a package delivered, then the package is delivered. I mean, how many times we've seen that in movies, TV shows, etc. That's just a trope.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if they release an augmented reality game, and this is a tie-in for marketing.
But I just thought it was funny how Not Soji was like, "How do I get in there?" And I was like, "You were just in there. That's where you got all your dad's files from."
Yeah, that's where you watched all the videos about your.
Yeah. I thought that the whole thing with her needing the VR headset, I thought was stupid, just because it's like, wait, this is you know, why didn't she just go back into the office and read some more files?
Yeah, I mean, you can maybe it was an excuse to get because Q was not in episode.
Yeah, it was a way to
7.
have John Delancey walk around the room.
That guy I love him so much. He chews up every scene.
Oh yeah, he's
in.
great.
You know, yeah,
He's just not in the show enough, man.
he's not. Yeah,
It's like they filmed, okay, Delancey, we're going to have you in 4 episodes for about 12 seconds each. So we're just going to film all your scenes in one afternoon. And, you know, that's what it feels like. But
yeah.
uh-oh, hold on.
But at least he's just super chat.
The random menace for €5. Thank you, sir. Guys, I like you all, but you are nitpicking things that are common in Trek and you never had problems with before, just so you can dislike it.
Thank you for the super chat.
Yosef and I are old friends, and you know, it's funny because Yosef and I have fought so hard on some of this stuff, and you know, I have to agree with him.
Look,
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I just don't feel like this doesn't feel like Star Trek to me. And it's just, I feel like we're going through some kind of soap opera on Earth that they've kind of trekked up and said it was a time travel story. It's just, give me spaceships, give me transporters, give me, give me phasers, give me, they need to get off. Yeah, absolutely. It's just not fun. I mean, I'm actually looking forward to Strange New Worlds because it at least looks like Star Trek. Yeah. It might still suck. It might suck. And it probably will. But
if it's episodic, maybe we'll get some lousy episodes and some good ones.
This feels like a Patrick Stewart vanity project.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is.
And it sucks. It's just not good. And I can't say any more about it.
Hey, so if it makes you
if we're being nitpicky, we're being nitpicky. And the only reason we can be nitpicky is because it's poorly structured and poorly put together. And guys like Matthew here, he's a skilled writer, and it's that kind of stuff that drives people crazy. I mean, I get it. I totally get it. It's and yes, we do nitpick, but we nitpick because we're supposed to love it.
We care.
And we care. Yeah. And that's exactly
like. Obviously,
I mean, Danny,
go ahead, Danny.
Let Danny hop in real quick.
Yep.
Oh no, I was just agreeing. I think, like we said earlier, I don't think we would nitpick some of the things that the Random Menace is pointing out. If the show, we could forgive these little nitpicky things if the show was good.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's just we're not getting 27 episodic shows a season. We're getting 10. We're basically getting one long movie, and it's just there's too much fluff, there's too much crap, there's too much inconsistency, there's too much shit that doesn't make any sense, and it's just destroying the legacy of, as a Captain Kirk fan, I'm just the argument's settled as far as I'm concerned. Kirk or Picard, Kirk all the way, baby. Thanks to this dumpster fire of the show.
I would also point out, I do this with everything I watch, movies, TV shows. I break shit down. And the difference is Danny nailed it on the head, where it's like, if the show's entertaining and fun and good, I will forgive mistakes. If the show's bad, I will point out as many mistakes as possible, because if you don't do that, people don't learn why it's bad.
Although it's funny you say that as far as being nitpicky. Now, I am very nitpicky for both stuff I love and stuff I hate, which drives most of my subscribers insane. And but like when I go to a movie with the family, like we went and saw Avengers Endgame in the theaters. One of the best movies, cinematic experiences you could possibly have. And we walk out of the theater, and my son was like, "Okay, Dad, why did you hate this one?" That's just what they expect from me. You
are called the salty trekker.
But I don't blame people if they want to like it. Like, I'm not saying like you're wrong for liking Star Trek Picard. What I'm saying is, like, there are so many issues to me in this show that it makes it impossible to enjoy. And I really wanted to bring them up with you guys because you're my Trek crew. So let's go around, get final thoughts on episodes 7 and 8 and theories for what's going to happen. Matt Vader, why don't you start us off?
Dude, I don't have any theories for what's going to happen. I'm kind of checked out on this series. I'm kind of over it. I don't even really care at this point. Get it over with. Let's get on to season 3 where we can destroy the rest of the crew as well. So yeah, bring it on. I just
Riker drinking battery acid.
yeah. It's just the battery acid stuff. It's just there's so much wrong with this show that it's taken me out of this series even more so than season 1 when they introduced the space orchids and the Adobe Photoshop Starfleet ships. You know, it's just
Oh, you can't mean that, man.
oh, I do. I dislike this worse than season 1. I'm not gonna lie. This is bad. It's bad.
Wow.
At
Let me
least
ask
you
you a
know.
question.
At least in season 1 we had Borg cubes and Romulans and shit. This is just bad writing in a basement in LA. It sucks. It's not Star Trek to me.
Is your are your feelings that you're expressing right now? Do they, you know, like we all had hope for those first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with how you're like, how do you shit the bed when those first 2 episodes
Yeah.
gave us so much hope?
Yeah. I don't know. Probably it's just they've gone from one extreme to the other here, and it's
Leave
just,
Johnny Depp and Hurd out of this, man.
Yeah, it's just
What?
Oh, you didn't hear about that.
I don't have anything. I don't know what else to say. It's just not good, and it's
right.
it's too easy to nitpick and make even worse than it is.
It's heartbreaking. Is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, it is.
Danny, what are your thoughts on episodes 7 and 8 and theories about the last 2 episodes?
All right, so 7, actually, really both of the episodes are pretty forgettable. Other than anytime John Delancey was on the screen, I just can't. Like I would not watch this show. I would literally stop watching this show if I didn't have to watch it for this podcast with you guys. Like I would literally would have given up on it 2 or 3 episodes ago. You know what I mean? It is so soul crushing. It really is. Like that's the only way I can put it. As a lifelong Star Trek fan, as someone who legitimately was torn over like the whole Kirk v. Picard debate, and now it's not a debate, and it's just terrible. And as far as the next 2 episodes, I don't give a shit. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I'll watch it so we can talk about it, and I hope we get more Q, and I hope it's more of the swan song. Like I feel like and if Brian might have said this earlier, or somebody might have said this earlier, and if so, I apologize, but I feel like Q, because Q loves Picard the way I love my cat. You know what I mean? Does he? And
Yeah.
I think that he's going to do something in the final episode, some kind of self-sacrificing thing to show that love of Picard and have his swan song, and I hope anyway, and have kind of like an epic, worthwhile death, suitable of an actor of his caliber. But it's all this Gerardi Borg Queen bullshit. I don't know. I just, you know, I'm sorry. It's completely crushed my soul, and it's just sad because if you go back and watch our first 2 episodes, we had so much hope.
Yeah.
And it's gone. It's just gone. So
All right. So Brian, what did you think of these last 2 episodes, and what are your predictions for the last 2?
Yeah. I originally didn't like this last episode, and then I went back and watched it, 17 more times, and I'm like a battered wife. So now I'm loving it. No, I'm kidding.
That's terrible.
That is terrible. No, but because
I deserved it. I deserved it.
I fell down the stairs.
I was asking for it. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, for real, Shay and I came up with a really good theory, and maybe I'm just snuffing hopium right now, but if they go the route, and they probably not because they're bad writers, but if they go the route that we think they're going to go over the next week, and they actually give us the cliffhanger that they promised, then a lot of the stuff that we've been nitpicking plot wise is going to make more sense. And I think that
Mhm.
I think I'm still in it. Still in it to win it, man. At least until it completely fails me.
All right, Michael, your final thoughts on episodes 7 and 8, and your predictions for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think you all suck. So, no, I actually am. I am still enjoying the series overall, but I will say this: I think episode 7, was probably the weakest of the series. Episode 7, much like episode 6, were episodes where I was just like, yeah, that just kind of happened. But episode 8, I thought, was a step up. It feels like it's a ramp up towards the climax of the season, where we're seeing where we're finally heading, where the precipice of the season is going. And as far as where it is ultimately going, I kind of, because I was so impressed with Brian's fine work, while we were talking about it, I threw a little presentation together myself while we were talking. So I'd like to, let me see if I can, hold on. Where's that?
I can add it to stream. Are you
There,
ready?
yeah, if you could add that. So I threw this together just while we were talking. So I think that what we did is we have the blue timeline, 2024, to the Borg incursion that we see at the beginning of the first episode. The destruction creates, let me bring my pointer over here. The destruction creates the alternate timeline with the Confederation. They go back in time to the 2024 that they are now in. They are now at the end of this season. They're going to go back forward in time to that same Borg incursion to try and prevent the Confederation from happening. That's what I think is going to happen. And I think that season 3 is going to be all about that Borg incursion. And I think that a lot of that has to do with some conversations that have taken place between other YouTubers and Doug Drexler.
So I thought season 3 was just going to be a circle jerk with the original cast.
It's the original cast is going to be in it,
Yeah,
but
it's a
keep in
cliffhanger.
mind, yeah. But what's that?
I mean, cliffhanger.
Yeah. The only thing we know is that the end of season 2 is going to be a cliffhanger, and so I think the end of season 2 is going to end with that Borg incursion repeating itself, except that with from another perspective, and maybe probably with Girardi being the person under the battle Borg armor, whatever you want to call that. And I think that season 3 is going to be basically the Federation trying to prevent whatever that Borg incursion is from, creating the Confederation timeline. And possibly preventing the death of the Q. Maybe they're going to figure out that the death of the Q is a problem.
Sorry, I was laughing at the comment.
The community college credit for watching this show. But I do think that I do think that there is hope for the show. I think that it's interesting, and and like I said, people like Drexler talking up the things that are going to happen in season 3 has got me really excited about season 3. And basically the conversations that I've seen with him is like, yeah, season 2 is kind of just build up for season 3.
So I want to ask you guys real quick. So the announcement of season 3 and the returning of the entire TNG crew to Star Trek Picard,
except for Wesley.
I found that the timing of it kind of weird, because normally you'd wait until this season was over and then you'd start hyping season 3 by making an announcement like that. But they did it literally like midway through this season, and I'm wondering if that's a sign that they know that the ratings aren't good or that the criticisms are really bad, and so they're trying to keep people interested in Picard by making this announcement now. What do you guys think about that?
You didn't watch my last video, man. It's because I'm gonna let Lewis, because you guys didn't watch it. The TNG cast is going to be in the season finale of this season. That is the big reveal. So they can't advertise it at the end when that's part of the big surprise at the end of the series.
So they might not have, but I subscribe and get the notifications, and I love
man.
all the content you and your
My
brother
man.
put out. It's great.
Hey
stuff.
man, I give you a couple bucks a month. What's the problem?
Yeah, right. That's it.
What's the problem, man?
That said,
You okay?
when did
Whatever.
that ad drop? Was it episode 4? I think.
Episode 5, I think.
Was it 5?
So it was
I
literally
think-
smack dab in the middle of the season. It was
so it was
planned.
episode 5. Okay.
I think you
So-
might be onto something, Brian, but I also think that it probably helped in the ratings. I see both arguments. I really do, but I don't know which one. I don't know which one's right.
I think the timing for me, anyway. So if it's right smack dab in the middle, I think we all agree we liked the first 2 episodes, and then everything since has been hot garbage, and so maybe they were trying to get ahead of it. Even though, Brian, I do agree with what you're saying, especially because they're talking about it being a cliffhanger, and the original cast from TNG will probably only be in it for 20 seconds or something like that at the end. They could have done that at episode 9. You know what I mean, and still had the same kind of what you're talking about. I think they chose to push it earlier because so many fans, I haven't seen anybody speak other than Michael here speak well of this show since episodes 3 come out.
Yeah, but Danny, that's
nobody.
not how marketing works. You don't want to drop that teaser on episode 9. You want to spread your marketing material out, especially when it's a big announcement.
See, Brian, I tend to disagree with you for this reason. So if the show was doing well and they kept it secret that the TNG cast was coming back, and then you get to the season finale of Picard and the entire TNG cast comes back, fans freak the fuck out. And then after that premieres, they announce, oh, they're coming back for all of season 3. That's how you build the hype for the second season. I think that they released this information mid-season of Picard because the ratings aren't there. And they're trying to gin up interest in the show because a lot of people don't like the show. That's my take on it.
I see both points as somebody who works, in the marketing field. I do see both points of view, but I find it rather suspect that they did this in the middle of the season.
I mean, bro, but didn't that look like an NTSC schedule? In marketing, you literally especially for shows like podcasts specifically, but you actually you create your material and you schedule out your marketing throughout the season. And it was literally the exact middle of the series. Someone looked up the date and said, "Oh, that's the middle. Put it right there," and they scheduled it. It looked exactly like the marketing schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree that though still because it was for season 3, and so you'd think that they would want to market season 2 up until the point season 2's over, and then start marketing season 3. So I can't agree with your take on that, Michael.
But not when they're connected. It's a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I want to make 2 points on it. First of all, I think that everybody that I've heard from on both sides of this, and I'm not the only person that likes Picard. I may be the only person on this panel that likes Picard, but I think Brian's soft on it. But
Yeah, I'm soft on it.
I want to be fully erect for it. Damn it.
Anyway, but I think
Sorry,
that,
baby.
I think that people read into it
Love you
a
too.
magnification of their feelings. People that don't like the show think that it's a sign that the show is failing. People that do like the show see it as a sign of triumph and confidence in the show. Whatever you think the show is, they see the announcement as a magnification of those feelings. That's all it is. It's us reading our own emotions into the announcement. It has nothing to do with whatever, the only people that know what the real meaning of the announcement are sitting in the executive boardroom at Paramount.
No, you're right.
So
No,
that's number 1.
Totally fair argument.
right.
I'll concede to that.
Number 2, I think that everyone on this panel would agree that the final episode of this season of Picard will be considered the greatest single episode in all of Trek if the final shot of the episode re-shows the Borg ship coming through the anomaly, the Federation fleet standing down with it, and then a small wormhole opening up behind the Federation fleet. Through the wormhole comes the USS Titan. Behind the Titan, a Packlet ship.
Oh, God.
Then we cut to the bridge of the Titan. On board, we see a live action Captain Riker. Next to him, Troy. At the helm, Boimler. And he yells at the screen, "This action has got too many licks and not enough jam, baby." And Boimler goes, "I don't know what that means." And cut to black.
Honestly,
Stop writing a better
just got
show.
chills. I got
Yeah,
chills
that
right
would,
now.
that would be great.
I got chills. Amazing.
And they get Jack Quaid to play Boimler.
No, the guy that plays Boimler is actually, he's a nerdy guy. He looks just like Boimler.
Jack Quaid.
Yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
Quaid.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Is that his name? Okay. Yeah. Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah. They need to get
Yeah,
him.
Ryan's
They
kid.
absolutely get him to play Boimler. They get, they would do it. They would that would be so awesome to see that.
But because it would be awesome, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Not going to do it. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for putting up with my nitpicky takedown of these 2 episodes. Matt Vader 74, where can they find you on the socials?
You can find me on the socials at Matt Vader 74, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, wherever the socials are. They're
And how many more subs do we need before we hit?
Oh,
5K?
we keep gaining one and then losing one, gaining one and then losing one. So right now we need 6 subs to get the 5,000 subs on the channel, guys. So if you are not subbed to the Salty Nerd Podcast YouTube channel, please hit that sub button. Get us over that hump.
Hit it. Hit that
so,
sub
so
button.
we can
I'll
we
log
can
into my
have
other
a 5K
accounts.
celebration stream.
Yeah,
With
I'll
some
log
cool
into my other
people.
accounts and sub
And,
for you.
You don't have to do that. That's cheap.
Yeah,
but,
let's get some legit subs.
Yeah, let's get some legit subs. So hit the button, guys. Hit the button. We appreciate you, and we work very hard here.
Bye,
And
Mom.
we
All right.
got a lot of plans in store for when we get bigger. So let's go.
All right. Danny, the Dork Knight LV, where can people find more about you?
Boom, right there on all the socials. I'm really the Discord, which is saltynerddiscord.com. That's it's like a safe space. I like that there. We talk about all kinds of different things. It's safer than Twitter anyway, but behind Discord, probably Twitter, I'm a little bit more active on.
Oh, Danny, you and your safe spaces. Do you need a little safe spacey?
Yeah, man.
Do you need a little safe space? You want a lollipop to suck on?
Well,
you
There's a
can have
little
safe
snow
spacey?
machine there for snowflakes.
never mind. I was going to be very inappropriate, but I won't. No, I just want to thank everybody. I really enjoyed today's episode, man. We had like well over 50 people for the majority of the show in the chat with us today. So thank you guys for that. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for putting up with watching me. Just like, this is what losing hope and having a crushed soul looks like. You get to see it right before your very eyes. So thank you.
All right. And Brian from the Popcast, thank you for coming on. Where can people find more about you?
What's up, boys? Yeah, my link's down there, but my main channel is popping out a video today. In fact, as soon as I'm done with the stream, I'm finishing said video, and it's all about explaining the timeline and the cliffhanger for this season. And I point out an error, a paradox, if you will, that I don't think can be resolved. So that video is going to be going up in an hour or so from now, and go check it out. It's gonna be awesome. Okay.
And Salty Trekker, where can people find more of your unique brand of Star Trek love?
Unique brand. Salty Trekker here on YouTube mainly, and of course still working to get on the payroll of Salty Nerds, but for some reason they just won't take me. I don't know.
I've been trying for years, man. I've been trying. I cradle the balls and everything. They just
wow, dude, dark.
Yeah, I know.
Don't need that level. See, that's why you don't get on. That's
Dennis Wright. Dennis Wright says it right here. Ha ha! I love the inappropriateness of Dork Knight. Some people like this stuff.
So I do want to reiterate. I know I say this a lot, but I really appreciate the fact that this is a place where 5 nerds can get together and vehemently disagree, but walk away from the table still being friends. So
Amen.
that's important.
Yeah,
Well, it would be fun if we were all in echo chamber.
Right, but
right.
but you know what? way too many of these panel discussion shows. It's just a bunch of people, fondling each other, as Danny was describing, and basically talking about how right everybody is about how wrong everybody else is. And that's no fun.
I agree. Anyway, guys, you can find all of our expert panelists links in the description of this video. Highly recommend you go check him out. Michael does a great job on his YouTube channel. So does Brian. Danny one day will be doing a great job on his YouTube channel, I'm sure. So if you want inappropriate and ball cupping, head over to the Dork Knights YouTube channel.
Anyway, guys, only wrestling videos right now. I do have a couple videos, but that's it.
So next Saturday, we will all be back to talk about the penultimate episode of Star Trek Picard.
Penultimate.
There will be more ball cupping.
There will be more Dune buggies.
Make it so.
There's 2 more episodes left, right?
Yeah, there's 2
episodes left before the end of the season.
I wish they would just put them both out at the same time.
They call it the Picard maneuver.
And then after Picard is over, we will be doing week-to-week breakdowns on Strange New Worlds. So
that I'm looking forward to.
Speaking of Strange New Worlds, get over here.
The Salty Nerd Star Trek Saturday morning recaps will continue to go for the foreseeable future. I want to thank everyone who joined us in chat. You guys are great. And also all of you who threw us some super chats. We really appreciate it. It goes towards the fund to hire Michael and Danny and Brian to come on full-time to the Salty Nerd podcast. But until next time, my friends, thank you very much and stay salty.